Alright, welcome back folks, all 16 of y'all that semi-watched my video last time. Welcome back. Welcome to my second episode of The College Conservative. Now every time I make these episodes, I'm going to try to make them as short as I can, 10-15 minutes, because I realize that people in general have small attention spans, and especially those on the internet, they want what's most exciting when they want it and how they want it, and then they let it go away when they're done with it. I completely understand. So I hope you all had a good weekend. Welcome back. Like I said, I'm going to try to do maybe 2, maybe 3 of these a week. Now summer's coming up, but I have plenty of stories to bring up during summer, and it'll get me better with contemporary issues as well. So that when we're back next semester, we can even have even more fun, and I can throw in other things other than just stuff that is talked about in the classroom. Having said that, so yesterday was an interesting day in class. You know, once again, my democratization class and feminism class was fun. I had a nice little debate with a student in there, and some lessons once again learned, which I'll be happy to share with you all in a moment. And then also in my administrative behavior class with my teacher who tries to hide his bias. He's a smart guy. He's one of these guys who he thinks he's deeper in, you know, into the intelligentsia aspect of education than he really is. So in other words, I think he thinks he's more of an intelligent of an intellectual mind than he actually is. Not to say he's a stupid person at all, but that's just the way he's very diplomatic when he speaks, and he tries to be middle of the road. I understand that for the most part. However, I mean, it's so easy nowadays to see right through, at least for me it is, to see the little mannerisms that, or the examples that teachers use in order to describe a certain situation, and in order to get a point across of, let's say if they use Trump, for example, and they use Trump's mistakes, that's one thing. But if they constantly do it, and then when they let little mannerisms slip, and, you know, little eye rolls and whatever slip, it starts getting easier and easier to figure out where they lie, which is fine. Obviously, teachers can believe in whatever the hell they want to believe, and I don't care. I go in there expecting that anyways. I go in there thinking every time I start a class, a new semester, I think, how long am I going to go into this class before I realize that, you know, how wacko or how left this teacher is. And it doesn't take too long. It doesn't take very long. Him took a class, because he was very conservative with what he was saying, and then I realized I picked up on the mannerisms very quickly with him. So if teachers think they're hiding it, they're not, and it's okay. But just don't. What he will do sometimes that annoys me is that when I debate him in class, I debate a lot in class, though I didn't speak last class, is that he will say it as in, he will say a point, and he'll say a centrist point, or a point obviously supported by the left, and then what he'll do is say, well, give into this argument, which I know that he supports that and believes in that, and he knows that I'm a free market capitalist, and I'm very much libertarian when it comes to economics and government intervention and government power. And he understands that, because that's where I've always came from. But then when he wants to speak of it in a general term of, well, given this point, it's like, no, dude, I know where you stand. You can just say I. And he's given up some wacko thoughts too. And one of them being, I think I might have even mentioned it in my first video, one of them being was that he believes that the reason why the Syrian president bombed his own people was because Putin told him to do so, nerve gas him, excuse me, so that now Trump could shoot off bombs on the airfields, so that Trump would look stronger. And because, you know, obviously Putin and Trump are in cahoots with each other, which there's no evidence behind that in any shape or form, and they've been going after it for months and months and months. And I'm someone who believes that where there's smoke, there's fire. And perhaps there was some sort of collusion between people that used to be in the Trump campaign or even General Mike Flynn. However, when it comes down to Trump winning and Russian interference, that is absolute bullcrap, and everyone knows it. And we know it because the left pushes on it so hard still, to the point where if we had found something, Trump would have been out of office like that. And because Republicans are so scared nowadays because they're such pansies to get any dirt on their hands and do anything good. Or do anything at all, really, now. Anyways, getting down to what we talked about so this video doesn't run over too long and I don't lose y'all's attention. So yesterday in my democratization class, we talked about, I got into a debate with a fellow student. It was about basically pushing, my teacher was talking about pushing the feminist agenda, and when she says, when I say feminist agenda, I don't necessarily mean socialist feminist agenda, though it always ends up that way. I mean more of just actual equality for women, which is awesome. Everyone wants equality for women under law, of course, and everyone wants women, I would hope, most people and everyone watching this feed wants women to be treated equally under law and respectfully. Having said that, she was talking about this, and certain prominent leaders in Muslim majority countries, Saudi Arabia, for example, Pakistan and whatnot. And so we were talking about that, and she made the point of, she started to speak on how the politics and the rules that segregate against women in countries, that stop them from having the same amount of rights as men. She basically made the connection of, or the separation of, I should say, that these rules and laws were somehow separate from the religion that they practice and the culture that they practice. And now, I don't want to dump on the religion of Islam. If you're Muslim, that's great. I don't care. But I do want to say this, that the laws in a country are obviously affected by the culture and the mindset of the people. I think in America, we can see this especially within the last 16 years. Even before then, especially this last election cycle, we can see that as well, and see kind of the conservative counterculture push leftism back and say, we don't want you. Although we are stepping closer and closer towards more European-style politics, which is really sad. And it's going to be really sad to watch the Republic slowly wither away. But anyways, try to make it a happy video still. So we were talking about that, and so I raised my hand and said, well, Professor, this doesn't really make any sense. So you're saying that the laws are separate from the religion they practice. I said, well, excuse me, if anyone's Muslim in here, I'm not trying to, I'm not trying to talk bad about your religion. However, the rules and the laws in these countries, such as Saudi Arabia, that prohibit women from driving and prohibit women from doing other things, and that make it so men are really the leader of the household, in the sense that their wives are totally dependent on them in what they do, and need their consent for almost anything. These laws, these come from culture. Our laws and our rules, or their laws and their rules, come from the culture, and their culture is heavily influenced by Islam, which is heavily influenced by Sharia law. And so I got into a debate with my student and with the fellow student. My fellow student brought up, we got onto extremism. Obviously, that's where it always goes, extremism. And I have the firm belief that with extremism, you don't have to just support strapping a bomb on yourself and blowing up a store or a building or whatever, or go stabbing people, in the name of Allah, or running over people in a truck in the name of Allah in order to hold extreme views. Excuse me. Those who believe that honor killings is okay for women sometimes, or sometimes justified, always given certain scenarios, that is extreme. That's absolutely extreme. There's other examples as well, such as people who believe in full constituted, Sharia law. And then you'll even hear the argument today where people will say, well, a lot of these, and I know the Pew Research actually came out with a poll, and came out with, from 39,000 different people, I believe, in 38 countries. I have to look up the numbers again real quick for you. However, they came out with a poll, ranging over a span of a few years, that talked about, the views of different Muslims, different countries, and their views on honor killings, their views on Sharia law, and even their differing views on how Sharia law should be implemented. Many of them, if not most of them, and not overwhelmingly most of them, but most of them, thought that Sharia law should be more something around the household or in communities, and not necessarily in the government, which is good, which shows decent signs for Islam. However, having said that, Sharia law, many basic tenets of it do not agree with just Western values and secular governance, just as we can see in Egypt, what happened with that in the Muslim Brotherhood, and possibly what we're going to see now with Erdogan and Turkey. We're going to have to see how that one plays out more. Anyways, so getting back to the main point of what I'm trying to get to, so once again, I don't go too long in this video. So we talked about Muslim majority countries and women's rights and how those have been lacking for years and years and years. And just to give one example, right? Let's say here, under Sharia, wives can be beaten. And this is off of counterjihad.com, obviously counterjihad.com. Probably doesn't like the religion of Islam too much anyways. I'm not going here to bash on them. I'm just going to show an example. This was just going through a few websites. This one just kind of laid out a bunch of several things in a row, which made it really easy for me, which is why I'm using this source. It's not like I have this source pinned or I'd go on it ever. So it says in Quran 4:34, men are the managers of the affairs of women, for that God has preferred in bounty one of them over another, and for that they have expended of the property, Righteous women are therefore obedient, guarding the secret of God is guarding, and those you fear may be rebellious, admonish, banish them to their couches, and beat them. Now there's other interpretations that say scourge them, or that say strike them. However, it does mean that if they're rebellious at first, don't sleep in the same bed with them. And then, once again, if they're rebellious, or admonish them first. And then, once again, a third step, if they're rebellious, then it's okay to strike them. That's not okay to strike them. No. And it's the culture like this, and it's the beliefs like this, it's just the minor beliefs like this that will lead to policy, and that will affect, obviously, how the whole country works when it comes to governance, and when it comes to just culture and culture in everyday lives, and how that affects everyone else. And so I thought that was one, and that's just one example. There's several examples. That website has several more examples. I just want to give you one. That Sharia law does support that, and that a very orthodox reading of that does support that. And then my classmate said, well, and then you want to look at Westboro Baptist Church. Guys, Westboro Baptist Church is the biggest joke in the world. You could probably make a comedy series out of some of the crap that they say. And yes, of course, it's bad that they boycott gay soldiers' funerals, of course, and that's evil, and that's wrong, and that's not right. And I would fight against them any day of the week. And if I saw them in public, okay, being a true follower of Christ, if I saw them in public, I would say y'all are wrong and y'all are crazy, and you guys are the exact thing that Jesus was speaking against about when he said, look out for false prophets. And so I have here as well, 9/11 conspiracy. I'm not even going to speak about that. That's just so wacko. Maybe I'll do a video on that later, but to not keep rambling on. Different interpretation of Sharia law, I kind of hit on that for a second. Pure research, I hit on that for a second. You can go easily type that in and look at that. I know I mentioned in my last video, I don't mean to keep mentioning it, but I know Ben Shapiro has a little 5-minute video on the not so minority / majority of radicalism in Islam. And it's a really interesting video. I like the statistics of it. I like how they gathered it. I agree with that it's more screwed up in Muslim majority countries than people believe. But I don't want people to think that just because they're radical means that they're just going to go put on a bomb and, go and blow up people. Radical, like I said, radical can come down to, well, it's okay to strike your wife, if she doesn't listen to you, or you can't let your wife go do this and go do that without your permission, or that you need four different observers to acknowledge that you were raped as a woman before you can get off, or you're punished because it shows that you are basically defacing your husband. Stuff like that. And so she also brought up a good point right after class. She respectfully brought it up to me. She said, she basically, or maybe it was during the class period, I can't quite remember, basically talked about how the CIA and the Pakistani government helped create the Taliban. Now this is true. This is true, and This is true, however, the way that she expressed it would have made it seem false. And it's true in the sense of, yes, in the 1980s, the proxy war between the Russians and those in Afghanistan, you know, that was a proxy war, and obviously the U.S. was funneling money basically through the Pakistan government in order to help support the rebels against Russia, because our main foe at the time was Russia. And what happened in that whole scenario, it was a really interesting scenario. So the Mujahideen, right, which was really the organization that was fighting against Russia at the time, Russia in the 80s. What we were doing is we were supporting them, because obviously Russia, like I just said, was our enemy at the time, and communism and whatnot. And so through Pakistan, we were funneling money and weapons and all these other things. What would happen was a lot of mainly Sunni Muslims, if I can recollect correctly, but Muslims in general came from different parts, like Indonesia and Libya and all parts of really the Islamic crescent in the world, such as North Africa and what else, came to support this fight. Well, what happened was obviously a lot of them had different viewpoints, and you know, they came from maybe different little separate cultures, so there was a little infighting as well. However, the infighting and the Civil War really didn't take off until after the Russians were fought out, of course, because the Russians were the main thing to group around. You know, kind of like the enemy of my enemy is my friend. So they came together, and then they fought them off. And once the Russians was gone, well, now you had a bunch of people here that, well, look at Afghanistan. Now it's torn apart. Now it's poor. It doesn't really have any sort of direction of leadership. So now you're going to have, you have a bunch of Islamists whom were more extreme than I think even the American government at the time might have even known. And I don't think the American government really foresaw what was going to happen, which was, you know, the civil war of factions, and then really just the takeover of that country by Islamists, which slowly, you know, which slowly turned into Al Qaeda, which means the base, because Afghanistan kind of became like the hub, the base. Even though Wahhabism, is the really orthodox extreme branch of Islam that is really starting to infest more and more and more of Muslims, which is the one that obviously the squeaky wheel gets the grease. That's the one we hear of the most. And that's like the extreme. Like, you will go and put a bomb on yourself. You will teach your kids to hate those that just don't believe in Allah, and that those that don't believe in Allah are just straight up, you know, committing heresy and need to get their hands chopped off and all that wacko stuff. Anyways, so that's what happened with that. So she was right in the sense of, yes, we did, because we started the foundation. We helped create the foundation of it, but we didn't create the Taliban, not that I know of, unless it's in some secret CIA folder, and then I don't have access to that, so excuse me for my ignorance on that point. But from what it sees and from what I've researched and what I've looked up, that we helped with the situation, and us helping give them money and cash brought them all together. But we didn't specifically want to make like the Taliban so that we could later be bombed by them, and we could, you know, and Al Qaeda, and then have a war on terror with them. You know, and obviously the Taliban comes out of Al Qaeda, and then what happened was the northern Afghanis, southern Afghanis, which were more radical, they ended up fighting, and the U.S. kind of stayed quiet on it because the northern Afghanis, who were more democratic, they were easy on dress codes, or easier on dress codes and you know, beards and schooling for women, but they were also allies with Iran, and Iran is allies with Russia, of course. And you know, so these ties go back for years and years, you know, for decades. And so the word is, or the thought is that the theory is that we stayed out of it, stayed quiet with it, which I don't know if it's more of a theory, it's probably actually fact. We stay out of that conflict between the two because although the Northerners were more democratic and we would want to stand behind that more, the Northern Afghanis, the Southern Afghanis, which was the Taliban and Al Qaeda and whatnot, they did not like Iran. They were not at all friends with the Iranian regime, and so obviously us being enemies with Russia and Iran and not liking Iran in general, and now Iran's all screwed up, of course, after their whole little extremist revolution, so to speak. So now it's just one big mess. Anyway, so that's the point there. I mean, hindsight, we should have helped the Northerners. And just because we helped the Northerners doesn't mean that doesn't mean we can't stop the Iranians in other areas later on. So, you know, that's an example of not where America has created it, but it's really helped stoke the flames and has made mistakes there. And then real quick, before I end this video, I wanted to just touch upon my administrative behavioral class. So we talked about Trump Monument Executive Order. So the executive order by Trump, this is off of Fox News. This is just I mean, I don't want to go to partisan places, and obviously a lot of people on Fox News are kind of have a love fest for Trump. I'm just reading it off this here because I don't want to read an article that's just going to hate Trump and read it off to y'all, or me read it, because I don't care for the narrative. I just care for the straight up facts. And so basically what it is, it's in defense of states and the people within states. So what had happened was Trump signed an executive order because presidents in the past, as he's claimed, and as I 100% agree with him on this topic, is that presidents have set up monuments in certain places and really just gridlocked and have taken federal control of lands, of millions of acres of lands, because of obviously the Greenpeace and the green movement and the environmentalist movement, who heavily support the left and the Democratic Party and give money to them and kind of have their stuff in a vice, in a sense. Not to say that the Democrats aren't happy to do so anyways. I mean, it hooks up their buddies, and now they're able to help more people and further spread corporatism in their own sense. Moving on. So, you know, he basically defends it by saying that, you know, today we're giving power back to the states and the people where it belongs. That's what he said as he was signing the executive order. And, you know, it goes to issue out the 1906 Antiquities Act, which gives presidents authority to protect land. And of course, now you can just hear the argument of the left. Oh my God, you want to kill land, you want to take away this, take away that. You want to, you know, you're not listening to the people and yada yada. Well, you know, I know that Obama went against the wishes of those in Utah and erected a monument so that those in Utah could not build, so that the people of Utah cannot use the land in their own state. You know, Barack Obama designated 1.35 million acre Bear Ears National Monument in Utah. Designation of the 1.35 million acre Bear Ears National Monument in Utah. And then, so what happened there was that now the people of Utah couldn't use their own land because now Obama is claiming, obviously there's environmentalists behind it. And just for the record, Republicans and conservatives are conservatives. Republicans are starting to go too left for me. I'm conservative constitutionalist. Conservatives, we care about the environment. We just don't care to screw everyone over in the name of protecting a certain tree, is what we're saying. We're not saying we want that tree to go extinct, and we don't think it will. You know, for example. But we understand that, hey, yeah, we have our national parks, and we have national monuments, and we want nature. That's great, of course. However, we also understand that people need to live places. People need to expand their businesses. And the economy needs to grow. And we also understand that we don't want to kill the nature because we like nature ourselves. We're just not going to put nature in front of human lives. That's all we're saying. And we can be smart about that, and I understand, and I know that we can be smart about that. And maybe that can be a discussion for, you know, later on, because I'm probably running over longer than I want to run over anyways. Anyways, so that was the Trump executive order, just to give the power back to the states, so that the federal government can't just take up land for whatever reason and have it just not be used, and so the states can't use the land for industry or homes or whatever else, which is their right to do, in my opinion. And then talked about independent regulatory commissions. I think I can touch up on independent regulatory commissions. I want to have a longer discussion on those later and the unconstitutionality of them. Sorry, folks, if you like them, they're unconstitutional. If you want to support them, that's great. You just have to tell me. You just have to convince me that why stepping against the Constitution in that area and why giving the federal government more power and bureaucrats more power is going to be better for all of us. So good luck on that one. Anyways, folks, sorry if I went a little over time. If you have any questions, I have a lot of good stories from class, and obviously this is my second installment, so I'm just learning every day of how to be better and better with this. And if you have any suggestions for me, please write in the comments below. If you like anything I said, awesome. If you want any more sources from anything, please let me know. Or if you just think I'm dumb and stupid, let me know as well. Whatever, that drives comments, which means more people are watching my show anyways. I hope y'all have a good rest of your Tuesday. Hope you stay safe. And I will see you after next class. Thank you so much. I'm the College Conservative.